don't want your clients and participants to be injured. I mean, you want to have, a safe environment. Sometimes when people have an injury, they're fearful of coming back. And that's not what we're after here. We want people to exercise for a lifetime, don't we? And we want to make sure they stay healthy and prevent injuries so they can continue to exercise, throughout their lifetime and not have that fear of a re-injury. So, there's, all kinds of reasons. And I think the quality, when we think of instructors and trainers who provide high quality instruction and supervision, in my opinion, that helps you to obtain more members, more clients, because you have a reputation of providing a high quality service. And I think that's, to me, one of the best ways to make money. Okay, if you're really into making money and that's what you want to do, and I don't have any problem with people making money, make all the money you want, but never compromise the safety of your participants. And, invest some money and time up front to really have well-prepared instructors and trainers and staff members, and provide that, and, that they will come. Your reputation will be, will be rewarded.
Yeah. What would you say about, because I could bring up something that I guarantee you probably 80% of gym owners are doing that, or probably can get them in trouble, is trainers that just have training certs that are writing prescription, like writing diets to people that can maybe, get them like severe caloric,
deficits.
Deficits. Well, are trainers even supposed to? If you just have a training certificate, can you get in trouble if you're giving diets to people?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Anthony. You can be in trouble if you are practicing dietetics without a license. Okay. So when we think of scope of practice, we've already talked about scope of practice, from a negligence perspective, from a civil claim, improper instruction, and improper training that can lead to, a lawsuit and not practicing within your scope. So, for example, professional scope of practice really deals with, staying within your education and training and certification experience and so on. And so, for example, like if a trainer has a client with a particular medical condition, I think last time we talked about the woman who had osteoporosis and the trainer had her do the jumping reps, on a bozo ball, and she fell and fractured her wrist. Well, that trainer probably should have referred that client to an exercise professional that knew the precautions regarding, somebody with osteoporosis. And so you want to always stay within your scope of practice, what I call the professional scope of practice. And so that would be an example of that. The other would be what I call the legal scope of practice, which I think you're getting at, Anthony, and that's practicing like dietetics or practicing any licensed profession without license. But probably the most common area would be the practicing dietetics without a license with, people that work in our field, and they're, providing, meal plans and nutrition plans and recommending supplements, and they're doing all these kinds of things. And that can get them into trouble. And now we're talking about, the violation of a state statute, a licensing statute. So it's a criminal case, not a civil case. And so let me just give you an example of a recent case in Florida. And this is kind of, I really like this case because it has some nice twists and turns to it. But anyway, this was a fitness and wellness professional who was providing nutritional assessments and individual nutritional counseling. And it was here in Florida, where I am. And originally she was doing this in California before she moved to Florida. California does not have a licensing requirement. Okay. And so she was able to do what she was doing in California. She was not violating any kind of nutrition or dietetics practice act because California doesn't have one. But Florida does. Okay. And so what happens in this case as well as other cases, probably a licensed dietitian found out about what she was doing, and she was doing most of her assessments and advice online. Okay. And so this dietitian, it's probably a dietitian that found out about it and reported it to the state board, the state board that has oversight of licensure. Okay. So then the state board can investigate the situation and find out what's going on, which the state board did. And so in Florida, there is a statute called the Unlicensed Practice of a Healthcare Profession. And so if anybody is violating, a licensing statute, whether that's, medicine or dietetics or nursing or athletic training, whatever it might be, you can be faced with, a cease and desist order, which basically says you have to stop what you're doing and they might fine you like $500. Or it might be a misdemeanor or even a felony, different levels of felony. So that's all specified in the statute for violating, a statute that requires licensure, to perform a certain type of job. So anyway, in this case, the state board did fine her the $500 and asked her to stop doing, what she was doing. And of course, she did not like that. Okay. And so she files a lawsuit. And in this lawsuit, she claims that her free speech rights are being violated. Her First Amendment, constitutional amendment, First Amendment speech, freedom of speech rights were being violated. So now this becomes a federal case, okay? So it goes to the Florida, federal district court, trial court. And the court basically says, no, the Practicing Act in Florida does not, there's nothing in there, and you in terms of violating your speech rights, it doesn't have anything to do with that. There's no violation of your speech rights, basically. Okay. All right. Well, then, so that decision is made. She's not happy with that decision. So anytime, you're not happy with the trial court's decision, either party can appeal to a higher court. So she goes to the 11th Circuit Appellate Court, okay, and a distinguished, group of appellate court justices. And so they hear the case and they hear the oral arguments, on both sides of the case. And so as we are waiting for them to make a decision, whether or not her free speech rights were being violated or not, a very interesting twist here. Florida amends its Nutrition and Dietetics Practice Act, basically saying that individuals can provide nutrition, individual nutrition advice, and information, counseling, whatever, in the area of nutrition, and you can make money doing that. There's no problems. Recommend supplements. I mean, all kinds of, you can do quite a few things. However, there were two caveats to this amendment to this Practice Act. One was that she could no longer service clients who were under the supervision of a physician regarding nutrition, medical, therapy. Okay, like for a medical condition, and there was nutrition intervention to help treat her medical condition. So she could no longer service those type of clients. And the other caveat was that she could not represent herself and use titles like dietitian and nutritionist and so on. There was a whole list of titles that she could not use. So you would think, okay, after this amendment came out, the state board came back and said, okay, this is kind of a moot point. She can go ahead and continue doing what she's doing as long as she doesn't violate the requirements within this amendment.
Right.
She's not happy with that. Okay. And so anyway, she still thinks her free speech rights are being violated.
Oh my God.
She just got licensed with all this trouble that she's gone through.
Exactly. By this time, okay, interesting. This case started in 2017 and it did not end until December of 2022.
Wow.
So what is it, 5 or 6 years or whatever?
Wow.
So anyway, make a real quick end of the story is the appellate court did tell her that, that her free speech rights were not violated and that, she needed to, follow the requirements within the amendment. So then she files a petition with the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. So she wants now the U.S. Supreme Court to rule to hear her case and to rule on her case. And now the U.S. Supreme Court gets thousands of these petitions every year, and the Supreme Court decides which ones they're going to hear and rule on. And of course, they denied the petition in her case. And so when that happens, the ruling of the lower court stands, until maybe something else changes down the road. But, anyway, a long story there, a case that has some interesting twists and turns to it. But, for individuals that I guess are looking at, what can I do regarding nutrition assessments and nutrition counseling and so on, you really need to review your state laws, the licensing laws within your state. And people can go to the Commission on Dietetics Registration, CDR, the Commission on Dietetics Registration. And on that website, you can click on every state and review, what those statutes are regarding the practice of dietetics and nutrition and so on. So you want to make sure that you're not violating, any state statutes regarding the practice of, dietetics or providing nutrition advice and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I would recommend for your viewers, a couple of colleagues of mine that are PhDs and RDNs, registered dietitian nutritionists, we wrote an article, and I think the title of it was something like Drawing a Line, Understanding the Scope of Practice Between Registered Dietitians and Exercise Professionals. And that was published back in January of 2017. And it's free access now on the ACSM website. So anybody can, download it and print it, save it, whatever. And it would be a really good article for gym owners and managers to review with their staff members. Even though it's an old article, a lot of the information is still very relevant, and getting a better understanding. What's the role of the dietitian and what's the role of the exercise professional? Because the exercise professional can really do a lot, as long as they don't cross over into that practice of dietetics. So we can provide all types of nutrition education. Of course we can. A lot of our professionals have certifications in nutrition and maybe have coursework in nutrition, and they know a lot about nutrition, And so there's a lot of education that we can provide and still stay within our scope of practice as an exercise professional. And so, but you just need to know, where you need to draw that line.
Can you give a quick example of like what would be okay and what would not be okay? What you're saying, like you can still give nutrition information, but what would be crossing the line?
Well, crossing the line would be getting into doing individual nutrition assessments, okay, and providing individual nutrition counseling. Those are the two biggies. The assessments, individual, okay, talking about individual advice, individual assessments. So that's really, where the scope of practice of a dietitian comes in. The dietitian is the one who does the nutritional assessments and then prescribes, a nutrition program and provides individual, counseling. And the dietitians have in their training a lot of background about medical conditions that individuals have and medications that they might be on, and all kinds of knowledge that they have, so when they are, providing individual counseling, they take into consideration, that individual's health history, medical history, and so on, medications they're on. And so a lot of times, an exercise professional, if somebody's on some type of medication, do they really know? You have to be kind of careful, because if you're recommending some kind of supplements and that kind of thing, can there be a interference with the supplement and the medication? I don't know. Sure. And I guess if somebody was a client and they asked me, well, what do you think about this supplement or that supplement or whatever? Because I'm sure that's a question that comes up a lot, and they think their trainer is the expert in everything, right? So, and they want their trainer's advice on supplements. And if I was a trainer, I would say, well, here are a couple of websites that are very, very good government websites that provide a lot of information about all types of nutritional supplements. So if you have questions about a particular supplement, go to one of those sites and learn a lot about it yourself. And then discuss that with your physician or maybe your dietitian if you have one, and then go from there. But as a trainer, I would probably stay away from recommending supplements. And I know a lot of clubs have gone away, have policies now where they do not allow their trainers to recommend supplements. And it used to be where they would sell them.
You got sub sales. Like some trainers would get dinged if their sub sales weren't high. Front desk people would get dinged if they didn't push their sub sales.
Really?
Yeah. So that's crazy.
I won't name the club, but I worked for a club that would do that same thing, Anthony. Yep. And they would tell me, oh, this month we want to push this fish oil, or this month we want to push detox. So I'd get done and they would say, oh, we want you to recommend after a session. So I felt like kind of slimy, like, oh, by the way, you're going to need to try a raspberry flavored fish oil if you want to feel great in your joints. And I didn't sign up to be a trainer to give people supplements. I signed up to help them physically. So it was like, I just stopped doing it. I said, I don't care if I get commission on this. I don't really care. I'm not going to recommend this for somebody who I don't even know if they need it or not. I mean, it was crazy, but they would tell us, like, recommend this one for the month.
Yeah, they push sub sales.
Give us education on it. But for me to prescribe that to someone, like you said, an individual prescription, and I don't know if they're taking a medication that is contraindicated with fish oil, for all I know, right? Why would I sell that to them? So yeah, it was a thing, and I'm thankful if that you're saying they're starting to move away from that, because I thought it was kind of ridiculous personally.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of clubs have gone away with it. There's probably, like I said, probably still some out there that are, have those kind of things going on with, the incentives for their staff to, market and sell the supplements. But, some clubs and fitness facilities also have, hired a registered dietitian. And, where individuals who have a lot of nutrition questions and concerns, they can set up a consultation with the dietitian, and then also working with, that individual's medical provider and so on, which dietitians do all the time, to make sure that, whatever is being recommended, is kind of a team approach, in the area of nutrition. So, yeah, I think that, there's some ways around that, by being able to, and that would be a really good, we recommend actually in this article that I just mentioned, Drawing a Line, we recommend, like in a staff training session or a staff meeting, to do some role modeling, like, okay, one person plays the client, the other person plays the trainer, and the client is asking all types of nutrition questions, and how is that trainer answering them? And those answers reflect your policy. So you would have a policy regarding nutrition education and nutrition information that all of your staff members would follow. But you got to train them on that policy and test them, like through role playing, to see if they really know how to comply with the policy. I mean, that's just a kind of a quick little simple way to kind of assess, because you don't want, your trainers, making recommendations that could be harmful potentially.